Welcome back to Bets and Breakdowns. I am Santino DeFranco. As always, I'm here with Brandan Olivas, betting extraordinaire. And we are talking about, we got a good UFC again. I mean, every week these UFCs are coming out. But before we talk about the upcoming UFC, first of all, hit the little subscribe button down there. Like us, share it with your friends. We know you're making money, except for the people that bitch about losing money, but that's on you, not us. Brandan, let's talk about last week's UFC fights. You had a killer week on LFA. Tell us a little bit about that before we get into the UFC.
Yeah, so the LFA card was a great one. So I found a couple spots that I loved about the LFA card. Now I will say this: in Colorado, you guys, if you ever watch Fury FC or LFA, anything that has to do with Colorado, you guys all know this referee. In my Telegram chat, like 5 minutes before this fight came on, I said, "All right, guys, we're gonna lose this fight just based on the ref." He takes points for accidental toes in the cage. He pulls people off full rear naked chokes. He's the worst referee I've ever seen in my life. Okay. Jacoby Jones from Factory X is fighting, has a phenomenal first round. He looks awesome, who I'm betting on. Second round, he starts to get tired. They're fighting in Vail. Third round, he gets taken down, and everybody, we're all watching this fight going, oh, we're out on this one. And the referee stands them up due to one strike to the back of the head, stands them up. And Jacoby comes back, starts rocking the guy, and ends up winning a last-minute decision, get dead tired, just completely gassed, won a decision. Very good night. I bet 10 to win 14,000, so that started me off right.
Yeah, that's not a bad take home for a night's work. I ended up betting, and every time we've talked about this. Every time I bet blindly on anybody's bets, I lose. And the other day, I was like, "Hey, who are you betting on LFA? I haven't looked at anything." And you're like, "These are my bets. This is what I got." Blindly, just threw it on. Didn't look back. Won all of my bets. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
I really felt great about that one. I think if that fight is anywhere except for Vail, Colorado at the elevation, it's not a close fight, but man, I was sweating. Thank you to that referee. Finally, you did, on my side for once.
Nice. This is actually a weird card. Moving on into the UFC, that was a weird card. We had some losses there, but I actually ended up making money because of some of the spots that I ended up picking up. I think, how'd you end up doing? Did you win on anything? I know you had Choi on a lot of stuff, and he was Kyler Phillips a few weeks or months ago. I had Kyler Phillips. He was my lock of the night. He was the one that was supposed to win everything, and he's the one that ruined my parlay. Like every parlay I had, every bet, everything in the whole world was betting on Kyler Phillips to win that fight, and he ended up losing it. This was Choi last weekend. How did you end up making out off of everything after it settled?
Well, I had a grand plan. I had this master plan. I took LFA. I made $14,000 on LFA. You can check the bets. I made that one. So my plan was to take the money
hold on. Wait, yeah. I'm going to cut you off. I'm sorry. We're going to put your bet slip up there, so you guys will see this on the screen. We'll edit it in because we're not bullshitting over here. And I think your total, what was it, 14? Yes, you got 24 back, something like that. So yeah, we'll throw that up here on the screen. Now I bet shit bets. Like I'm betting $50, $100, $200 bets. So, I mean, I could show you my bet slips, which I will. But they're not. My risk aversion is not the same as yours.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm never a bet shamer. No, I'm never a bet shamer. So whether you're putting $5, $10, really it's just what you can afford to lose. Now, I've been very fortunate to be playing with house money for a long time, which is why I take bigger risks and bigger bets. But I'll never bet shame somebody or anything like that. So it's, no worries over here. We won't judge either way.
I take my money out and support my wife and children. You keep your money in and buy your dogs food.
Yeah, and watches,
and watches.
Anyway, so I had a master plan this week to take all my profits from the LFA, and I loved this week when most people were sitting back and really nervous about this week. I watched our podcast a few times over, and I said, "Man, we have some great spots here." And I took all my money from LFA plus another 14, 15,000. So I was about $30,000 in. Um, and Choi, unfortunately, he's the reason we don't have a sponsor today. LaCroix dropped us.
Yeah, so that was a hard one. Not only did we lose our money, but we lost our sponsors as well. I think we have eviction notices too on both of our houses. Our cars got repoed. That was
the most heartbreaking thing is I think I went 11 for 12 this week or 12 for 13. I hit plays in Bellator, upset picks. I hit plays in KSW. I hit plays in every single one in the UFC. If Choi would have sealed the deal, my take home, my profit would have been $90,000.
Oh, it's a tough pill to swallow.
Weeks. Yeah, just watching the swing.
One to swallow.
I was out in Florida with no cash outs.
Yeah, exactly, and you couldn't do anything about it. Exactly. I ended up doing okay. I ended up up a good amount for the week. I did a bunch of stuff just straight up. I'm looking right now. The random Marcos Souza thing, I ended up throwing money on Souza. And I don't know why. I was the one telling you, I don't know, Marcos is a little bit tougher than I think, blah, blah, blah. But I'd never really seen Souza. But I was like, you sold me when you were like, look at who Marcos has lost to, jiu-jitsu black belts. And I was like, all right, fine.
That's a good point.
And Marcos, it's a solid point. So I lost on that one. I didn't put money on Staropoli. I put money on Choi. So I lost money on Souza, lost money on Choi, won money on Rodriguez straight up, won money on Trinaldo straight up. Who else did I win money on straight up? There's somebody else I won. Mason Jones and Tabitha Ricci. So I won money on all those straight up. I lost on Choi straight up, and I lost on Souza straight up. But where I made my money was I bet a parlay, and these are the clever spots that people don't realize. It's not always about betting fights, who wins and who loses. We've talked about this so many times. Like sometimes you don't want to bet who wins and loses. You have these fights where the main event, Vettori and Paulo Costa. Like Vettori was a solid favorite because everybody thought Paulo was going to just show up and Izzy it, show up, take a beating, fall over. But he actually fought his ass off for 5 rounds. He ended up losing, did not look the best we've ever seen him, but it was a good, solid fight. But we didn't know. You didn't know what was going to happen. Is Paulo going to show up? Is now, so you don't want to bet those. I made my money on. I bet a parlay. So I bet Nick. How the hell do you say this guy's?
Negamorano.
I bet him to win, and then I bet the Trinaldo Grant fight, Alex Caceres Choi fight, and the Grant Dawson Ricky Glenn fight, all to go over 1 round. So it was a 4-bet parlay, 3 to go over a round, Nick to win, and I ended up winning that one. And that one actually, put me up pretty well. So I mean, nothing crazy, but I think after everything was said and done, I cleared $700 for the night.
Wow, that's a good week.
Yeah, and that doesn't include, I didn't go crazy on the LFA stuff, but I bet I think 150 there. So I ended up winning 180 or 200-ish, however much it came out to be. I forget exactly. So, I'm up like $900 on, a week, which isn't bad. You know what I mean? You do that every week. And
you ended up up $1,000 and I was down 6,000. So we see how that went.
Yeah, exactly. So, it wasn't bad. The Bellator, did you end up even with the Bellators, you had Choi and mix in with those, huh?
No, so hold on really quick before we switch over to Bellator. I just want to point out a couple because, I love the comments, guys. Keep the comments up. I'm with you guys. We read them. We like them. So the Martinez fight was added after the pod came out.
God.
Great spot
that one,
there.
I called you and I was like, you didn't bet on this one, did you? And I said, Martinez is the one. And I was telling Kyle, I was in Florida with Kyle Estrada, and he was like, who do I bet? And I was like, bet Martinez. I looked at that kid's record. I'm watching his fights, and I was not impressed. And if I wasn't in Florida, I would have bet the house. But for some reason, I wasn't able to because, we live in Arizona. We weren't able to get the bets and stuff going right there. But yeah, I would have bet on Martinez. And I was telling I don't even know why that fight came up last minute. It came up after the pod.
Yeah. The next fight, we did miss the mark, or I missed the mark on Souza. She makes bad decisions. I think I said that, and we spent 7 minutes on it last week, longer than
Let's
any
spend another
other fight.
30 minutes on it right now. Why wouldn't we?
Hey guys, just check it out. That line, I've talked about my theory in the past. A fighter with a losing record should not be a minus or a plus 110 against a fighter that's 14-3. So that line's right up with my theory, and Randa Marcos won. The line was telling you who was going to win. I just tried to go against it, and unfortunately it lost. One of my sharpest plays of the night, and I called this one to a T, so tell me if I'm wrong. But what's his name? Jeff Molina versus Daniel De Silva. I didn't spend much time on it. But I said, hey, this kid gets tired. Molina's a grinder. He's going to punch him a lot, take him down, submit him. And that's exactly what happened.
We got to talk about that fight a little bit, because I have some weird guy on Instagram DMing me about that fight. Really weird. Kept going on and on. Check out this Daniel De Silva. He's going to win. Bet money on him. And I said, thanks for the tip. I didn't watch tape, so I'm just not betting money on him. He's like, you don't need to watch tape. There's the lines. And I was like, cool. You do the lines. I only bet if I watch tape on people, or you tell me I'm going to do it, but somebody else, I'm not going to, you know what I mean? And he's like, no, the lines. I was like, dude, have a good day. Like, good luck, blah, 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 blah. You have to bet the lines. People know. Don't you agree that the people in the know more, and the bookies and this and that? And I was like, dude, I'm not agreeing with anything. I don't know anything. I'm just, good luck, going on and on and on. So after the fight, I'm a snide son of a bitch, and I just sent him a screenshot of the win and the loss. And he was like, you dummy, you don't know anything. You lost on Staropoli and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, he's like, and you bet, and you watch tape on him. And I'm like, first of all, I didn't bet on Staropoli, but I thought he was going to win because I thought Pickett sucked. But secondly, I'm okay with losing on fights that I watch tape on. I'm not going to get all of them right, but I'm also not just going to randomly bet because some dude on the internet or the lines or something. I'm like, that's just retarded. So anyway,
I think there's something to be.
That was it.
I
think that's the guy that's the guy I think that keeps giving us the one thumbs down.
We get one thumbs down on every week.
One.
Well, this is something interesting to think about, right? So I have my theory, right? When you get a bad record versus a good record and the odds are pretty close to even, or they're not as dramatic as they're supposed to be, they are telling you who they think is going to win, right? But when the odds are dead even with two guys with good records, we play this. You know what? I got my butt kicked on Contender Series tonight. I didn't do much film. I didn't do much research for it. The only guy that I actually liked, I lost kind of a bad split decision. So unfortunate. But I was trying to play the lines, right? Play the lines the other way. And I just got crushed on it. It's not real. The lines are not real. Your eyes are not.
The lines are not real. Yeah, the lines are untrustworthy. I mean, they're a guide, but they're not everything. Because if the lines meant everything, then all favorites would always win, and that's all you would ever do is bet favorites, and then you would never lose money, and there'd be no point in ever gambling.
Well, I will say this:
silly.
There is one guy. Man, there's a lot of cappers out. What do you call it? Cappers, right? And I'm sorry, guys, my gambling lingo is almost none. I just see money in, money out. That's it. Don't talk to me about tracking and units. I don't know any of that stuff. But one guy that I do know that is phenomenal at this like line system, and it's a system all his own. I don't know many people that follow something like this. UFC Shark. He runs this weird system, and he kind of keeps track. I think you've told me something like this before. Certain lines that tend to win more often than not. They're similar lines and similar fights. So a system like that I can understand sometimes. But saying, oh, we're tracking the movement.
Yeah.
It's tough. That's a tough go, right?
Well, because you don't know what the movement is. Is it just some guy throwing a bunch of money, or is it because somebody has some inside information, or what? Yeah. But going up the lines, back up to the fights. The other ones I actually forgot that I threw money on was Jai Herbert over Kamaworthy.
Jai Herbert. Yep.
I had him, and I also had him in a parlay with Alex Caceres fight to go over 1.5 rounds. I forgot about that one. But that one made me money. Jai Herbert just starts the dude, and I think Kamaworthy, man, he might be close to being out of the UFC.
I think he's done. I think that was actually a loser goes home fight. They're both on losing streaks. Guys, if you listened to the podcast last week, I said that is one of my favorite picks of the week, and that was flawless victory. Beautiful Jai Herbert.
Yep, I agree, man. That was a solid one. That was a solid Brandon pick. Tabitha Ricci, we knew she was winning, but she actually didn't look as good as I expected her to look off the bat. Round 2 and 3, once she kind of found her takedown groove, okay, but she worried me the first part of the first round. I was a little worried out there. She got the job done.
What did we say? A perfect read on that one as well, that she's fought a girl who's really, really strong, and she can push the pace for 3 straight rounds with takedowns, with punches, and that is exactly what happened. She did it for 3 straight rounds on a girl who's not as strong. So we called that one too.
Yep. That was solid.
Mason Jones did Mason Jones things.
I was impressed with Mason Jones, but I was more impressed with David Onama. That dude, on a couple days' notice, fought his ass off, up a weight class. Man, you give that guy 2-3 weeks camp, I think he would have won that Mason Jones fight. Like that was a barn burner, and I thought that was fight of the night for me. I thought that was a phenomenal one. Great fight all around. I think Mason Jones moving up in the division is going to have a hard time with these guys because he's so slow. That is going to really get him. And he's got decent stand-ups, but his takedown defense is not great. And I think at the 155-pound divisions, you've got some really athletic people and you have some really good wrestlers. And I think Mason Jones is going to do okay, but I think he's going to get out-wrestled and out-athleted as he moves up higher in the ranks. He's going to be top 10 to top 20, but when he fights those top 10 guys, even top 15 guys, depending on the matchup, I think he's going to lose those matchups.
I totally agree. He's a great, solid guy as we move up in the ranks. And you're right. Once he hits that top, then the guys that are a little bit more athletic and just as good as him are going to give him a lot of fits. But for now, we love him.
We love him. We love him. We loved him last weekend, and he helped our bank accounts.
Gregory Rodriguez, that was a great fight.
Gregory Rodriguez won. Trinaldo.
I think I called that one as well, right? As an upset.
Trinaldo. Was he a dog? I thought he was a favorite in that one.
No, I'm sorry. Gregory Rodriguez, I called as a dog.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and Rodriguez, I mean, he that fight got a little dicey as well, but I thought all in all that was pretty solid.
Yep.
And then really, I mean, we talked about the other ones. Grant Dawson, Ricky Glenn. We said stay away from that.
Wow.
Because it's too close to call. Gun to my head, I said Grant. Gun to your head, you said Glenn. Ended up being a draw. But I thought Grant should have won that. Do you agree, or do you agree with the draw?
I thought that Glenn should have won it. He put Grant Dawson to sleep. He put him to sleep.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a technical submission.
That's true.
Okay. I think we talked about it. Glenn is just such a veteran, such a grinder. And I told you guys, every fight that I'm saying, hey, it's just not for me. I understand what you're talking about if Dawson wins, but that fight is not for me because the odds are not what they should be. Glenn is so much better than what the odds showed in that fight.
Yeah. And that's why I stayed away from a winner. I went, it's going over a round. And that's the play in a fight like that. A close fight like that, just evenly matched. Maybe that's the play. Maybe that's the play. We're talking about odds. Maybe as we're betting and we really come to these decisions that we do not know who to bet on. It's just too close. That's a over a round fight, guaranteed money.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think we're going to see a lot of that this weekend.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right there. And then, of course, the main event we stayed away from. I wouldn't have touched that over a round, under a round, 10 rounds, 0 rounds. I mean, that fight could have gone every which way. I mean, if you had told me, if the fight had started and in the second round, they're like, hey, we're going to contest this fight at heavyweight now. There's a mid-fight eating contest. That wouldn't have shocked me at this point either, because this is one of the weirdest, wildest fight week shenanigans of a fight I've ever seen. And if there was a bet, fight will go on or fight won't go on, I would have bet everything I had that fight wouldn't go on based on all of that stuff. So
just goes to show you how much of a grinder Vettori is, though. The guy just said yes to everything, got in his face, and just won a fight. That guy is a grinder.
And that's the thing that people don't understand. At the end of the day, people think too much about technique, about skill, about all of the science and all of that. And they forget at the highest level, I mean, really anywhere, it's a fight first and a competition second, not a competition first. And man, you get these guys that nobody tells them they're supposed to lose, and they just end up winning. They win fights they shouldn't win because they just don't give a shit, and they're bite down on their mouthpiece. And man, as a coach, give me a decent technical guy who will just bite down on his mouthpiece any day of the week over a really technical guy that left his fight at home in his pants pocket.
Yeah, totally agree. All right, should we
Um,
dive into this weekend?
let's go into this weekend because man, I've got some batshit thoughts on some of these fights, and I think people are gonna think I'm nuts. I'm nuts. I'm nuts. But we're not going to talk about every fight on this card. We talked about that a little bit earlier. There are so many. So first of all, there's a lot of fights on this card. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 fights on this card, which generally there's 12. That's a lot of fights. Maybe a couple fall off because of COVID, because Paulo Costa decided he wanted a different weight class or whatever. But that's a lot of fights. It's more than usual. So we're not going to talk about all of them. We're going to talk about ones that we just like betting wise. And then the other thing, generally, when you have, first of all, this fight is in Abu Dhabi. So that's going to mess with a lot of things. Like that's going to change a lot of things. We see a lot of foreigners on this card. They can't get to the U.S. because of COVID restrictions. So they're in Abu Dhabi. They should all be able to get in there. Everything's fine. Now, the rule of thumb, people out there in betting land, when you don't know who to bet, you see a Russian and they have a neck beard, you bet them against the Brazilian, against the American, against the South African, against everybody on the planet. But, and riddle me this, Brandon, what do you do when an unknown neckbeard fights another unknown neckbeard? Like,
I'm out. I'm out of here.
You just stay out of that because, it's like with too much neckbeard comes too much responsibility. And we cannot break down those fights that well. And then you get Ukrainians in the mix against Dagestanis, and then the Dagestanis against the Russians, and then the Russians against the Georgians, and then the Chechenians are involved. And now all of a sudden you got a Chechenian leader just shooting people, and we're responsible somehow. And you've got that with a lot of these fights, man. There are a lot of Russians on the card. A couple Americans, couple Chinese sprinkled, a couple Brazilians sprinkled throughout. But mainly, man, this is a Russian card or an Eastern European Soviet bloc card. And man, there's a lot of fights on here that I would absolutely stay away from. And pretty much all of the fights I would stay away from, I would say bet over a round because they're, a lot of these fights are not getting finished. With that said, where do you want to start on the card? Because I really like a few of these fights, but I am not going through every Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan country on our way up.
That's okay. I think let's just touch on a few, and I'll give you guys some bullet points. But just full disclosure, guys, I want everybody to make a lot of money. That's why we're doing this a little bit, right? This might be a card, just for me personally, that I sit out or I go as simple as possible. Maybe one parlay, two parlays, and I'm out. This is one I just want to enjoy because it's just too tough. Let's start at the bottom. Let's take a look at Tagir Ulanbekov versus Alan Nascimento.
Are you actually going to bet that one, or are we just starting at the bottom because it's on the bottom?
Well, I was really fascinated with that fight. I started trying to tape it. We actually, Bruno Silva, a guy that I train with and you coach, fought Tagir Ulanbekov, and he looked great against Tagir.
He did. And then he gassed out a little bit, got taken down a little bit. That said, it was a pretty close fight. It was a solid, good fight. And he is fighting a Brazilian, Alan Nascimento. what's your thought on that? Do you have a thought? Where are we going?
Well, let's just take a look at the odds here because that's what was really, really surprising to me. So Tagir is a minus 370 versus Allen that's plus 305.
Really?
What's super interesting? So I remember when Bruno fought him. Now Bruno's a very small human. I'm 5'7". I'm a big flyweight. Bruno's tiny, right? Now watching
Bruno's
that
tiny
fight,
for
you're thinking,
straw weight.
yeah. You watch that fight and you look at Tagir and you're like, man, he's so tall and so rangy. He's my height. He's 5'7". So then you look at the other side. You look at Alan Nascimento, who is 5'9". This guy is a massive flyweight. Massive flyweight. I mean, he's huge. And
5'9". That is not humanly possible.
And not skinny. He's not skinny either. You know, Tagir's tiny. Skinny guy. This kid, Nascimento, is thick, right? He's got a split decision loss to Raulian Paiva. He's got a few split decision losses, and he's won. Let's see. He's got a good record. He was on the Ultimate Fighter Brazil. He's a big guy. I mean, he makes bad decisions, and I think if the wrestling comes into play, it's Tagir all the way. But that's not a bad shot at a dog right there.
That is not a bad shot at a dog. And he lost a split decision to Raulian Paiva, who we might know by earlier talking about Kyler Phillips, who freaking beat Kyler Phillips out of nothing but toughness and blew all of our parlays. So, man, the dude's going split decisions with him. If you want to bet a dog and you want to go against the grain. But see, that's the thing is I think right now the odds makers are all so big on the Russians and the Dags that you get some of these guys that, you know, matched up with them and they are going to unfairly be big dogs just because the Russians are so dominant these days.
Yeah, and I just want to say really quick, I didn't get to do as much film as I want to, so I'm not going to pick a clear winner. Do your own research, check it out if you want to. I'm just saying that might be a good spot for a dog because those odds are a little bit insane for I guess where I value Tagir.
Okay, interesting. So what do you have any thoughts on the Damir Ismagulov or Magomed Mustafayev fight or the Hugh or Petrosky fight?
Actually, yes. So the Damir fight was the one that just got me to sit down this week and go, let me just watch because it's hard to get a read in this. Damir's got 100% takedown defense in the UFC. He's tall, he's rangy, or so I thought. Now, looking at their actual heights, he's 5'10", and Mustafayev is 5'8". It's not a massive range difference. And then you watch Mustafayev fight. The guy is insanely aggressive. He can wrestle his ass off. He's just crazy. Hard punches. And then you... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say he's the one that beat spinning back kicked Fiziev, who is now just, you know, super dominant, is one of my favorite fighters right now out there. You know, and he lost a close fight to Brad Riddell, who is
amazing.
And who's amazing. That guy he's at the top of the food chain right now. The top 10.
He's taking Choi's place on the list.
He is out there, man. So go on.
Yeah, so it just interesting. So, you know, like in one school of thought, you got this tall, rangy Russian or some subset of Russian who's going to jab him up and just play with your distance. And I think that's the clean bet. I think that's the way to go. He's got takedown defense. His Instagram shows that he's been wrestling at a high level with all these insane wrestlers. So I think that's the sharp bet here versus Mustafayev, who's a little bit crazy, kind of just power. But the thing that scares me is Mustafayev can wrestle. And we saw in Damir's last fight, we saw him get dropped by Alves, just swinging crazy wild punches. Alves, Mustafayev, exact same height, exact same build. I would say Mustafayev probably has a better gas tank and better wrestling. So very fascinating one. Damir's a big favorite. I like Damir, not enough to put serious money on it.
But again, I mean, this is one of those ones you pick over a round, you make some money, or you throw over a round on a parlay. This one is not being finished early in round one. I don't see it. I don't see most of these.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great pick.
Going on to the next fight, Hyozang Hu, Andre Petroski. Uh, Hu is 3-2. He comes from China, from the Chinese PI, and you've got a guy, Andre Petroski, who's 6-1. They tried to find the best matchup for Hu possible, and they're doing this with the Chinese fighters. And they want to build China. They want to build these Chinese fighters, man, and a lot of them are just not up to par. I think Petroski is probably one of the best matchups for Hu, and I think Petroski wins it. I just don't think Hu has the. He's just not. He shouldn't be in the UFC. What do
Whoa,
you
whoa,
have a
whoa.
line on that one?
Yes. You guys are all going to hate me for saying this. This is bizarre. I have done so much research on Hu Yaozong, like insane amounts. I've been all in on Hu Yaozong for a long time now. He was supposed to fight Amadovsky a few months ago. The fight got rescheduled. It was actually rescheduled for this one, and Amadovsky pulled out. So Petroski it's a late replacement fight. Fascinating. So this would kind of fall into my theory. Hu Yaozong is 3-2 versus a guy who's 9-1, fresh off the Ultimate Fighter, and it's a pretty close line, right? It's not a minus 300 like the last fight was, which is a much closer skills gap.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the deal. I am not sold on Petrovsky whatsoever. I mean, the guy.
No, nobody should be. Nobody should be sold
Yeah.
on Petroski. They are feeding Petroski because he is the worst guy that they could find to build up a Chinese guy, and he is supposed to lose to Hu. The UFC put that guy in front of Hu to lose. That said, I'm not sure that he was told that, and I think he just is not quite. I don't think he's as bad as they hope he is. And I think Hu is not as good as they hope he is. And I just wouldn't touch that.
I'm going to put, I'm going to ride just like I did with Choi last week. I'm going to ride or die with Hu Yaozong on this one. So he's 6'3". He's got a granite chin, this guy. I mean, I've watched his fights. I watched him throw down. He's got an insane chin. He actually reminds me a lot of like a Julian Marquez. He's got these kind of like little T-Rex arms with this insane chin. One thing that they kept talking about in his fights, and I visually have never seen this, but they're talking about his wrestling accolades. They're talking about him being a Greco-Roman wrestler in China, being this phenomenal wrestler. Now, in the UFC, he's not looked very good, but he also hasn't fought in, let's see, how long has it been? He's at it says Tiger Muay Thai. He hasn't fought since 2018, so he's almost 3 years out of the game. So the way that I look at it is you're fighting on a couple things. You got a great chin. So is Petrovsky going to knock him out? I don't think so. Petrovsky has 1 round of gas if he's lucky. He's fighting a guy who's 6'3". So no matter if he takes him down 100 times, you're still moving a guy who's 6'3" on your takedowns, who allegedly has a wrestling base. So God forbid Hu Yaozong stops 1 takedown. Petrovsky's just there to hit, and Yaozong's striking is not bad. He's got great low kicks. He hits really hard, straight punches, and he's got a great chin. I like Hu Yaozong here. So you call me crazy, I like him here.
Okay. Actually, I want to get into fights I care about here in a minute, but I kind of care about this one is Makwan Amirkhani and Lerone Murphy. And I only care about that fight because our boy, Kamwela Kirk, fought Makwan on a couple days' notice and beat him. And I think Makwan is really good. I think he's really tough. I think he's got some cardio issues that probably stem from I don't think he knows how to cut weight, and I don't think he knows how to rehydrate. And I don't think he's probably doing a workout the day of the weigh-ins at night to kind of get his body moving. And he's probably not doing something in the morning to get his body moving. And I think his body is kind of shutting down because of that. And then you have Lerone Murphy over here, who's 10-0, who's really tough. He's got a couple of good wins. Douglas Silva DeAndre, but really, I mean, he's a blown up flyweight. Tukagov, I mean, Lerone Murphy is a huge favorite. Who do you got in this fight?
I love Lerone Murphy. I need to tape his takedown defense. His stats are not good. He's a 41% takedown defense, but 6 of those were to Gurov, who's fighting actually later in the
Yep.
card. I think Murphy's one of these guys. He does everything well. He hits so hard, and he can keep a good pace. I like Lerone Murphy here.
Man, I really think that Makwan gets the upset here. I think Lerone Murphy fought DeAndrade, who's like a 25er going up in weight. Like, I am just not impressed with the guys he's fought. I mean, he fought Chukagov, but honestly, Makwan has really good jiu-jitsu, um, and he won't die. He's I forget, he's got some really good wrestling credentials up in Finland prior to, turning to MMA, and he's got some really good grappling. I think he gets the upset. Uh, I'm not impressed with Lerone Murphy as big as everybody else is, and I think the odds are a little bit biased because of that. Um, Man,
I
I
could
mean,
totally see it. I could
he
totally
went the
see it.
distance with Barboza, dragged Barboza to the mat a few times. He went the distance with, yeah, I mean, Camuela, and he's a black belt, or and a good striker, and I mean, he held his own. Makwan did, and drag Gabe, Camuela down a couple of times. Man, I got Makwan here. I think he gets the upset, and I want to see him win because anybody that fights our guys, I want to see win because it makes our
Yeah.
guys look better and better and better. Um, but honestly, I don't want to bore everybody with all of the fights on this card, and I kind of want to get down to brass tacks. Like, enough with the nonsense. Let's talk fights that we give a shit about.
All right.
Okay, the first fight I care about is Jingliang Li and Khamzat Chimaev. And Chimaev, whatever you want to say, um, he is a fun fighter. He's fun to watch interview. He's got an attitude. He doesn't give a shit. He's got a hair lip, and he's just down to fight. Um, that fight, I think, is exciting. I think Jingliang Li looks like doesn't look like, fights like, standing like a big 170-pound version of Tim Elliott. He is like a barrel of monkeys moving around as he's throwing, and he's offline, and he's weird, and he's awkward, and he doesn't know what a straight punch is. Um, and I think he hits hard. He beat Santiago Ponzinibbio, which is a solid freaking win. Um, that said, I think Khamzat, I think this is actually Kazmat's biggest test. I think, as weird as it is, I mean, yeah, he fought Mearshart,
Mearshart's
clipped him.
good. Mearshart's really
He,
good.
he is good, but Kazmat just clipped him so early that it wasn't even
It's
a
hard.
fight. It's hard to
Yeah, you didn't get to
say.
see the meat.
That said, I think Lee is his toughest opponent, and I think Khamzat wins. I think we watched Lee get dragged down a couple of times by Neil Magny. Magny was able to control him a bit, and Magny is phenomenal as well. I think Khamzat is going to be a much better grappler than Magny, and I think he's going to drag him down, and I think he's going to beat him up. I don't know if he gets the finish. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, but I've got Khamzat in this fight. I don't even think it's close. I don't think COVID plays any role in it because Khamzat's been out from COVID for a while. He's had a lot of issues there. They're in Abu Dhabi. I think Khamzat fights Lee, gets a win, and then stays in Abu Dhabi, not realizing there's not 4 more cards, asking Dana to fight the following week.
Yeah, you hit it, guys. Don't overthink this one. Khamzat is the truth. People want, we're saying, oh, he's so overrated. He's so overrated. A lot of these guys have to feel really lucky that the fight never happened with him because Khamzat is the truth. Don't overthink this one. He's going to take him. He's going to drag him down, and he punches a lot on the ground. A lot. He is brutal. So don't overthink this one, guys. Khamzat's going to be probably the leader in my parlay here.
Yep, I think so.
Khamzat.
Next fight I want to talk about, and if there's other stuff you want to talk about, stop me. I'm just kind of moving up the list from here. There's like 27 fights from the first one till now. I don't give a shit about most of those. But Alexander Volkov, Marcin Tybura. Tybura's a kind of wild striker. He swings. He's tough. He's a decent wrestler. He kind of will push the fight to the cage. Eventually, he gets the takedown on people and he grinds people out. And Volkov is the tallest human on the planet with a beautiful freaking jab, a beautiful front right kick. And just he's a smart fighter, and he's got a chin on him, especially at heavyweight. That dude takes punches. He eats them like sandwiches and doesn't even blink outside of a Derek Lewis punch. And really, he was cleaning Derek up the whole fight until he landed that punch in the third round. I think Volkov is just the better fighter here. His jab is unreal. He just stands right in front of you, just at his range. The only thing that kind of worries me about Volkov, with a lot of fighters, they tend to punch down instead of lowering their level and punching on the plane of their own shoulders and kind of hands. They tend to punch down because it's easier, which opens their chin up. So if I'm taller and I'm punching down at you and you're just swinging, looping overhands and big hooks, you can clip me. And that's how you fight bigger, taller guys, is you duck your head and you swing big looping punches over the top. That said, a lot of Tybura's win. If you watch, they have a lot of common opponents. They both fought Verdum. They both fought Walt Harris. They both fought, somebody else. I forget. I was just watching tape the other day. And, take the Walt Harris fight. Walt Harris was putting it on Tybura until he just kind of gassed out and Tybura was still there. And so, of course, Tybura won. I think, and then on the other side, you look at Volkov, and he got taken down 5,000 times by Curtis Blades, who's one of the most athletic guys in the division. And I think he's the only one shooting blast doubles at this point at heavyweight, and just kept shooting under Volkov again and again and again and again. And Volkov never quit. He kept getting back up, kept fighting his ass off. And I don't see Tybura getting the takedown. And if he does, I think Volkov is right back up. I don't think it's a finish. I think Volkov just picks him apart for 3 rounds. And I think it's a pretty safe bet. I don't know how Tybura wins that.
Yeah, that's a great analysis. And I'm just going to piggyback on what you said, because my heart wants Tybura. I like Tybura. I think he's really cool. And I think he's underrated. People think that he's horrible. He's garbage. He shouldn't be in the UFC. I disagree. I think he's a good heavyweight. But I think you got it exactly. The only guy that's going to do that to Volkov like that is Curtis Blades. That guy is so good. He's so fast for a heavyweight. And Tybura does not shoot like that. He doesn't shoot the same way.
No, he pushes forward, he clinches, and then he tries to drop to a double and lock his hands. Even if he can drop to a double and lock his hands, Volkov is so tall, he's going to have to lift Volkov 4, 5, 6 inches off the ground to turn him enough to get him to the canvas. And I don't think he's going to be able to do that. And if he does it once, he does it twice, and Volkov gets back up, and that's that.
That was one of the reads that I found watching film on Tybura. When I was betting on the Walt Harris fight, I didn't like his wrestling. Just, it looked a little bit sloppy to me. Now you try to do that same sloppy wrestling to a guy who's 6'7" or 6'9". That's just a harder takedown. And when you don't have that phenomenal cage wrestling, something that we go, wow, it is hard to take down somebody that tall on the cage. So
it really is. It really is.
Yeah, I think you're right. He fights his hands down, and really his way to win is just be there long enough to let the other guy make a mistake, and that's how he wins. So I think Volkov
does have phenomenal ground and pound. Tybura, we saw him knock out Greg Hardy on the ground. We saw when he gets somebody down and they aren't working to get back up, he has great ground and pound. Volkov is going to try and get back up. He would go to his guard a little bit with Curtis Blades later, but that was just because he didn't know what else to do because he wasn't able to get up on Curtis Blades earlier in the fight. Volkov wins that. I think it's easy money. Next, we've got Islam Makhachev, Dan Hooker. Hooker's kind of a last-minute replacement. He was here in the States, didn't want to go back to New Zealand because of a bunch of weird COVID stuff. Who do you have on this? I'm going to let you go first and hear your thoughts.
God, this is this week's version of the to me of the Grant Dawson and Ricky Glenn line. I think the odds for this are insane. I think people don't respect Hooker for whatever reason, whether it's the quick knockout to Michael Chandler or whatever it is. I think Hooker is so good, so phenomenal. I mean, he's going to decisions, and he's winning a lot of these fights against guys who are fighting for titles, guys who are at the top of the division. Hooker's takedown defense is awesome. His fight IQ is phenomenal. His striking is very, 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 very clean. Makhachev, he's got his style. But I think the problem is people are starting to figure out these Dagestanis. They're starting to get it. They're starting to understand it. And if anybody's going to solve the riddle, I think it's going to be Dan Hooker. So again, this is a fight
on short
I wouldn't
notice,
bet.
though. Do you think on short notice he's going to be able to solve that riddle?
Yeah, I think the short notice thing. So when I run down my list of things, short notice is increasingly becoming bottom of the list. Unless you are known to have cardio issues, which I don't think Dan Hooker does, it's becoming bottom of the list. Dan Hooker is a veteran in the game. He's been in shape. He would just fought. It's not like he fought 2 years ago. He just fought. Dan Hooker's ready to rock. I like Dan Hooker. Possibly in an upset. I won't put money on it. I want to enjoy this one. I hope Dan Hooker busts some parlays here.
See, I disagree with you 100%. And I think, well, not 100%. I think Dan Hooker could go out and beat Makhachev. I think he absolutely can. And I absolutely do not think he will do that. And the thing is as people get higher up the chain, as they get higher up the ladder, as they get older, as they fight more, they take less risks. They become more technical. They kind of know what they're doing, and they don't blow their wad up in round one. And that is what is going to hurt Dan Hooker here. And if Dan Hooker were to go out like it was his first, the Dan Hooker of today, right here, right now, today, this is his first fight in the UFC, he upsets Makhachev. I wouldn't say he upsets him, but I think he has a very good chance of upsetting him because he's going to go out there, he's going to be dynamic, and he's going to go throw that shit on the line and go fight his ass off. He is too reserved, not him, but everybody at that division, or in those ranks, the top 10, the top 15. We don't see guys put it on the line anymore at that level. You don't see it in boxing. You don't see it in kickboxing. You just don't see it. These guys go out there and they're technical and they know what to do and they know how to win. I think Dan Hooker being that guy, he's going to go and he's going to look and he's going to try and find his moments, and his moments are going to pass him by. And I think if you were to go out there and throw some flying knees, and if you were to treat this like a one-round fight, I think he has a really good chance of catching Makhachev. I don't think he's going to treat it like a one-round fight. And I think because of that, Makhachev is going to get inside. He's going to close the distance, and he's going to drag Hooker down or put him on the fence. And I think he either wins the decision or in the third round, he finds something and kind of, like he did with Drew Dober. I don't think he finishes Hooker because I think Hooker is just higher level than Dober. And I like Dober, not a knock on Dober, but I just
Dober's
don't
good.
see. Dober's solid, but his fight IQ is not what Dan Hooker's fight IQ is. His cardio is not what Hooker's cardio is. His jiu-jitsu is not what Hooker's jiu-jitsu is. Hooker's a much better version of Drew Dober. That said, I don't know that Hooker is going to go out there swinging for the fences, and I think that's going to be a detriment to him. And I think Makhachev wins the fight kind of one-sided unless he just gets clipped early, which I don't think is going to happen.
I like the over 1.5 here. You could probably go over 2. I think you got two veterans at such a high level. That's the safest way to play this. Because if you're trying to go straight on Makhachev, it's crazy odds. You're not going to make any money. If you try to pull the upset with Dan Hooker, I mean, that's just a big risk too against somebody who's so high level. I don't really like this fight as a bettor, but as a fan, I can't wait. This is probably one of my favorite fights.
Right. I'm excited for it. Now, moving up the ladder, and honestly, moving actually back down the ladder, the Volkov Tybura fight, over a round and a half. The Islam fight, over a round and a half. This is the card to make money on with fights that are going over a round and a half. A lot of these fights, we got 15 fights on the card. I bet over 10 of them go the distance. So that's where I think a lot of the money is on this one is over a round and a half. You throw a couple of those parlays in, and I think you're good to go. Now, moving up, we got Petr Yan and Cory Sandhagen. And I'm starting on this one because this is my favorite fight of the card. I've been excited for this for a while. I don't even think this is a close fight whatsoever. Y'all are going to think I'm nuts. I will 100% eat crow Sunday morning if I am wrong. Cory Sandhagen is going to clean Petr Yan up. Just clean him up, clean him up, clean him up. Do you think I'm crazy there?
Yes.
I figured as much. I think that Petr Yan is so aggressive, and if he tries to play aggressive like that with Cory, the knees are coming up right up the middle, which is going to set him. It's either going to land or it's going to pull him back really fast. Jan's high guard. His hands are glued to his temple all of the time. And Cory Sandhagen's body work is like fucking Picasso over here. It is a work of art. He is going to go to that body and he is going to rip him every which way. Jan's defensive wrestling is phenomenal. That doesn't matter because Sandhagen's not shooting. How good is Jan's offensive wrestling? We don't really see it a lot. I think the only way that Sandhagen loses this fight is if he goes full asshat and throws 400 spinning wheel kicks, attacks like he did against TJ, which just put him in bad positions. That said, even if he does do a lot of those spinning attacks, TJ was looking for the takedown, which I don't think Jan is going to be looking for. And I don't think Sandhagen should do them very often.
Ever.
You can mix one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he did it. He did them a lot with TJ because he had success with Marlon. He knocked Marlon Moraes out with it. So he got a little wheel happy over here and started spinning around like a ballerina and ended up on his ass. TJ was looking for the takedown. I don't think Petr Yan is. I don't think it'll matter as much. I sure as hell hope Sandhagen stops doing them. But his movement, his footwork, his fight IQ, his jiu-jitsu is phenomenal. I don't think he's going to be panicky like Sterling was. And man, I think he is going to clean Petr Yan up. I like Petr Yan. I think Petr Yan is phenomenal. His boxing, he actually throws like a legitimate boxer, not a quote unquote boxer in MMA. He throws everything hard and powerful. He's on balance. His hands are up. He does not make a lot of mistakes. That said, I think Sandhagen is going to pick him apart. I'm not going, oh, maybe he wins or maybe he loses, or I think Sandhagen gets it, though. Sandhagen cleans him up, and if he doesn't, I will eat my words come next week.
Yeah, and I can't wait for you to do it. Something you told me a while back, the better fighter is going to win the fight 90% of the time. And you look at somebody like Petr Yan, he might be the best fighter in the UFC. I mean, you look at everything that he does, his striking to me, his feints, his pulls, everything that guy does is, to me, he reminds me of the Lomachenko of MMA, the way that he moves. He just, every single thing he's downloading, he's waiting, he's seeing. I don't like to put a bet down on somebody when I just have to hope the other guy doesn't do something. The second that Jan decides to wrestle, just to actually wrestle, I think it's a wrap. I mean, Cory's like, who are you just talking about? Who can't? Oh, Mason Jones can't defend a takedown, but he does stand back up. So this is a tricky one. I think Jan might have horrible fight IQ. He's just so freaking talented. He circumvents that all the time. And Cory's fight IQ is somewhere in between genius and in the middle with the spinning stuff. And sometimes he thinks his jiu-jitsu is a little bit too good.
Genius and retardation, somewhere in between there.
He's right in between because sometimes when I was taping, who's the guy he fought twice? I can't remember hold on, let me pull it up.
Sandhagen or Petr Yan?
Sandhagen. Sun Sal. He fought a Sunsao. Sorry,
Oh,
just one
okay.
time. A Sunsao reminds me a lot of like the poor man's version of a Peter Yan. And there were points in that fight where Sunsao was whooping him. Every time that Sandhagen spins, he's grabbing a hold of him. He's sitting on top. He's taking him down. The second that Yan decides to wrestle or he pushes forward, I think Yan blows him out of the water. And, even watching the TJ fight, I I lost almost $30,000 that night betting on Sandhagen. Sandhagen's volume in rounds 3, 4, 5, it started to go away as TJ was pressing forward. He wasn't seeing these things as technical because TJ was still there, still in his face.
But TJ just held on, and that is, I mean, TJ was not doing a lot. He was just holding his back. Now, that said, Sandhagen wasn't able to get away from it that well. But Peter Yan is not, he just doesn't fight that way. That's just not his style. He is not a TJ style. So I think taking a look at TJ's victory, and that was close as well. I mean, I could have kind of gone either way.
Very close fight. I thought Sandhagen won.
I wanted Sandhagen to win. I thought the judges were going to give it to TJ. And then you look at the Aljo fight with Sandhagen where he just took his back really quickly and choked him out. Stylistically, those are weird fights for Sandhagen. This is not that fight. I'm betting the house on Sandhagen, and man, I don't even think it's close. I think he is going to pick him apart, and I think people are going to go, whoa, that was crazy. This is going to be Rose Namajunas and Weili Zhang.
Wow, good comparison. Version. Good comparison. I think that Jan's striking's a lot better than Weili's.
I think so too, but I think it's going to be similar. And the lines are good for me. Cory last, I already threw money on him, and he was a plus 200-ish when I did.
Yeah, great job. All right, is that leading us to the main?
That's the main event. It's main event time. We're getting this in. Jan Blachowicz. I can't pronounce anything. I hate myself, and I'm an English teacher. But that said, this is Polish, so I mean, it really only makes sense. And Glover Teixeira. What's your thought on this? Who do you got? Battle of the old men. I'm so happy Glover is finally getting his title shot. The dude is, he's 64 years old, doesn't look a day over 85, moves like he's a 92-year-old tortoise. And is still out there winning against these young bucks.
Yeah, Glover's awesome. Everything in my heart wants Glover to win so badly. This is one of those where if I would put 10,000 on Jan, I wouldn't be upset if Glover got it because I want Glover to win. That being said, Jan makes good decisions. He's the champion for a reason. He beat Izzy, who is phenomenal and can probably beat most light heavyweights. You look at his record, he's beat the who's who. Even Corey Anderson knocked out Corey Anderson, and we look how well Corey's doing in Bellator now. His streak is so much better than Glover Teixeira's streak. And in every single Glover fight that we've seen, he's been on death's door, rocked, stumbling around the whole thing, and then finally grabs a hold of you and drags you down and does his thing. You get 5 rounds to not get knocked out by Jan. That's a tough task when you're as chinny and as old as Glover is. And I want Glover to win. I think Jan's the easy one here.
Yeah, I think Jan's the easy pick. He's got a really good right uppercut when people try and close the distance. He shoves that in. Glover kind of Frankenstein's his way in. He's going to get hit with that uppercut. Jan's hands are not fast. They're pretty good. They're pretty technical. They're not fast. His kicks, however, like his legs are like
brutal.
They're like a 25-year-old kicks. His hands are 55, but his kicks are 25. His left kick is really fast. He mixes them up well, and his wrestling is good. His jiu-jitsu is good. And I think his fight IQ is better than the guys who generally rock Glover. They generally rock him, and then they just are there trying to swing and finish him. And they kind of assume, oh, I'm going to get this guy out of here as he is shooting. And then they end up getting taken down for their efforts. Jan is not an idiot. He's going to react. He's going to defend the takedowns as he is striking. like I said, fast kicks, fast right uppercut. The only thing that worries me, and I don't think it matters, is the way that Jan moves backwards. Is he almost just like if you're just walking backwards as a human, left foot, left foot, right foot. He does that. And as a striker, that's a good thing to do when you're trying to set a trap. You're just walking backwards as if, oh, casually, it's not something you want to do out of habit, but if you're just trying to set a trap and you're just walking backwards, you can catch people coming in and following you. That is really going to set up some takedowns for Glover, because if Glover blitzes him and Yan is just walking backwards, Glover tends to shoot right at that moment, and Yan's feet are going to be together. So don't be surprised if we see Yan taken down once or twice in the early goings when he's backing up, because he backs up in such a lazy manner. He's going to end up he's going to put his feet together for Glover, and if Glover just happens to shoot at the same time, he's going to get a couple of takedowns. That said, I think Yan scoots to the cage, gets back up. And Yan has good jiu-jitsu as well. He has good jiu-jitsu. He has good wrestling. We saw him take Izzy down quite a few times. And Izzy's not a strong wrestler, but I think his combination of striking, his cardio, he's got a good chin on him, and he's just a smart fighter. I love Glover. I'm glad he's still fighting. I'm glad he's getting his shot. We've seen him come back from the dead so many times. The guy has 9 lives. I don't think he has 10 lives. And I think he's going to need a 10th life to beat Yan. And Yan's not ready to concede that. I think it's kind of an easy win for Yan. Not an easy win, but a simple win. You know, does he get Glover out of there? I think probably so. But even if he doesn't, I think it's kind of a one-sided victory for the champion.
Let me just say this as the final mic drop about this fight. Thiago Santos felt okay throwing on Glover a lot. He was active. He actually threw punches against Glover. We haven't seen that in like 5 fights of his.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. He is not happy throwing punches anymore. And you know, I mean, you look at what he did to Anthony Smith. You look at what he did to Thiago. He put beatings on those men. That Anthony Smith fight was one of the roughest fights I think the world has seen in a long time. And that said, I think Jan's takedown defense is infinitely better than Anthony Smith's, and I think his ability to get up is infinitely better as well. I think it's an easy bet. I will probably look at some more of these fights as we go further on. So if you guys out there in viewerland have some comments, feel free to ask us. You guys have been awesome commenting, interacting with us as the fights get closer. We'll throw some stuff down too in the comments. I threw some updates down there when we knew that Paulo was not making weight, and then when he was going to light heavyweight and things like that. So we'll keep adding those comments to the video as stuff nears. Other than that, do you have anything else on this card, Brandon, before we're out of here?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. Just one I wanted to touch on really quickly. I can't wait for Zubara versus Tagaya versus Ricardo Ramos. I can't wait for that fight. That is going to be a phenomenal fight. And then one that I'm probably betting, guys, I like Albert Duraev versus Roman Kopylov. I think Duraev is solid, not just in his wrestling, but his striking also. ACB champion versus kind of a young kid. I like that as a big mainstay in the parlays too.
Okay, well, nice. We'll keep adding stuff. Follow me on Instagram, Santino DeFranco. Follow Brandan at Brandan Olivas. That's BRANDAN Olivas. Like, subscribe. We'll see you guys. Only bet what you can. And we'll see you guys later. Thanks for listening, having chat with us, and comment. Let's hear what you guys have to say.
Peace.